Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. You can't make this stuff up. How many times have we been in this exact position? Years and years of saying something, being called a crazy person, an extremist, a fascist, and then eventually, the leftoid politicians and policymakers themselves end up saying the same damn thing. We were crazy just last month for saying this, but now when they say it, oh, it's common sense, good policy. If a Democrat says it, it's good. If a Republican says it, it's malicious and grounded in bigotry and it's fascism. Give me a frickin' break. Remember when Donald Trump suggested possibly using the National Guard or the military to secure streets in major Democrat cities to go in and handle the gang problem? I know, real shocking stuff. These gang members and these gang wars in inner city communities create more deadly conflict zones than what you see in the Middle East, but we're supposed to just accept it as a reality of living in the modern world instead of doing something about it. Donald Trump being one of the first presidents to say, look, we're gonna have a hard stance on this thing. He was called a racist, an awful person, yada yada yada. And now Democrat left-wing city council members, surprise, surprise, are basically singing the same damn tune. You can't make this stuff up, folks. Here we are again. Let me show you guys what I mean by that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, friends, so here's the headline. After years of pro-criminal policies, Democrat DC councilman urges National Guard intervention over surging Capitol violence. Following several years during which the DC Council championed pro-criminal and anti-police measures, Ward 8 Democrat council member Trayon White has sounded the alarm on the alarming crime rates in the district. He has made a pressing appeal to deploy the National Guard as part of a multifaceted strategy to counteract the soaring violent crime in the nation's capital. Addressing the media on Tuesday near the haunting backdrop of Saturday's mass shooting on Good Hope Road, White emphasized the dire need for the community to rally together against the spiraling violence, which resulted in a 28% spike in homicides this year. As part of the proposed measure to combat the rising threat, he advocated for deploying the National Guard to patrol DC streets. Here's what was said: "The crime is out of control and getting worse by the day. We must declare an emergency regarding the crime and violence in our neighborhoods and act urgently. It may be time to call on the National Guard to protect the children and innocent people that are losing their lives to this senselessness. I am tired of burying children. We are too comfortable with the state of our city. We must take action to gain control and protect our residents. Law enforcement is only one part of how we combat public safety issues. It will take all of us to heal our community. I'm calling on the community and its stakeholders to join us for a shooting response to speak out against the violence in our city. Elected officials cannot solve this alone. The effort requires the input and cooperation of parents, students, churches, businesses, civic associations, and even those responsible for the violence. We all must do this together. I stand ready to make our streets safe for all who walk on them, not only in Ward 8, but across the district." Calling on the National Guard to come in and help with the problem. Finally, at least a little bit of sanity seems to be entering the building. Of course, with the backdrop of leftist naivete, this idea that this effort requires input and cooperation from parents, students, churches, businesses, civic associations, and even those responsible for the violence. Blah, blah, frickin' blah. It sounds nice. It sounds great. But at the end of the day, it's never going to happen. I mean, I've seen this exact same strategy attempt to be employed for decades at this point. Former gang members creating organizations in these communities to bring people together. It sounds nice, it's great for a little news segment or a little YouTube clip. At the end of the day, it doesn't accomplish anything. You have ruthless criminals on the streets. What are parents and churches going to do? What are former gang members or even those responsible going to do to solve this problem? There's no kumbaya moment that's going to happen here where everyone comes together, locking hands, chanting a beautiful song, miraculously solving this gang violence issue. It's not going to happen. There's only one way to truly solve this problem. You gotta be a hard ass. It's the only way, literally. There's no other solution. There's only one way to deal with a criminal element, and especially when it becomes a contagion element, when we're seeing this epidemic of fatherlessness roaming gangs of criminal teens and criminal young adults taking over the streets, the only solution is near military intervention. RICO cases, taking down the entire organization, like we saw in New York City in the 70s. You need heavy police presence. There's no other way. You know, Democrats have convinced the world that increased police presence in certain communities is based purely on race, so it's racism. It's the over-policing of the black community. No, it's not. We're talking about neighborhoods where sometimes 100+ people are being violently murdered every single year. And in the city as a whole, in Chicago, for instance, nearly 1,000 people, most of them young males, are being viciously, violently taken out of this world over petty gang squabbles. You're talking about communities that are being ran by criminal organizations. Increased police presence in those neighborhoods is justified. In fact, it should probably be taken to the next level. But instead, liberal naivete has become the most popular way of thinking, and now we have this. A huge increase in violence and just criminal action in general across these Democrat cities with the same kind of left-wing city councils that implemented the same kind of policy. You know, the handcuffs need to be taken off. Metaphorically, of course, police officers need to be allowed to do their jobs. Investigative units need to have increased funding to go after these entire organizations. RICO charges, locking up 100, 150 people at a time, getting them all off the street. There needs to be a disincentive to commit crime or to lead a life of crime. A serious disincentive. Not a, oh, you might get a couple years, you might not. Chances are you'll be let back on the street, or chances are no one's gonna bother you in the first place. No, serious career repeat criminals, violent gang members, members associated with gangs, need to be locked up. If you can't be a law-abiding citizen, participating in society, adding to society, you can't live in society. That needs to be the standard. You have little roaming bands of 14 to 17-year-old kids controlling entire blocks, openly hanging out on those blocks with illegal firearms, selling substances, beefing with rival crews, shooting up events in broad daylight, and the standard has become these days that it's normal, that it's supposed to be accepted, that actually they're victims. They're not victims. They're hardened criminals who have no respect for human life. And now it's one of the biggest problems plaguing the nation, but it's been swept under the rug. I mean, again, let's put it into perspective with what I said in the intro. More people die in Chicago every year from gang violence than soldiers are dying in foreign wars. How is that not epidemic level? Not to mention, they're flooding the streets with illegal substances, fentanyl for instance, and over 100,000 people die every single year from overdoses related to that one substance alone. We're talking about a crisis, we're talking about an epidemic, and the Democrats' solution is kumbaya. We need to come together, parents, children, the church, businesses, civic associations, and the gang members themselves. Spare me the naivete, this BS mode of thinking, and get tough. Should the National Guard and serious police forces be deployed in Washington, D.C., St. Louis, Philadelphia, Chicago, the list goes on? Absolutely, it should have been done a long time ago. Any serious country with actual moral standards, any serious legal system would have done it a long time ago. It's long overdue. There have been raging gang wars for decades. And instead of doing something about it, we simply accept it as reality and listen to music that glorifies and glamorizes it. It's become part of entertainment, it's celebrated, and no wonder the problem is getting worse. Democrats are the biggest hypocrites on this issue. It drives me absolutely nuts. They love to use tragic events involving young people to virtue signal, but they're all silent on the thousands, if not tens of thousands of young lives that have been viciously taken from this earth over the last couple of decades due to this senseless violence and this culture of criminality. It's gotta stop, and I guess it's one step in the right direction from one Democrat councilman. But of course, we've seen this stuff before. These Democrats love taking to the podium and making it all about themselves and talking a big game, but when it comes to taking action, they're missing in action. It's high time for that to change. That's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Of course, you know we'd love to have you here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.